Hello, there are kids and adults who will tell you they've been putting fake ties, fake natures of ties between everyone as collusions with all kinds of natures of organized crimes out and next to the campuses. And the differences of guilt there as collusions. And they're connected inter-cities and intra-cities, inter-campuses and intra-campuses. A Rick Faglione and a Joseph Dennis years apart. These are a whole bunch of connections between people I don't know at all who sought me out to make fake exceptions with people I don't know at all who were pretending on Facebook, planting fake passions and emotions, fake ties to me with people that had their names repeated to me. And Mark Violet and Ray Colol repeated the name Joshua Julian to me. That's one of the little tricks they do with their rules with the foreign and domestic intelligence, where they say and do things as collusion with data stacking. They're putting fake things in databases. A bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, they have former mayors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with educators that I never had, of people on my street that were in the same grade, but I didn't have classes with them, who have roles with mayors putting fake things in databases with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And they're leaking, they're not legitimately with unmarked police forms. And people on off the state corrections offices, judicial branch offices with families pretending they're caring about unmarked. The reason they have all the problems is because they state collusions as laws names. So WFSB faked conversations with me and their sources and the interbranch, and they changed communications with people. They put me in fakes and changed communications with me and everyone around me. I barely spoke with people, and they were all scared to give a response. There wasn't enough time for me to know them and to make questions about themselves. Increasingly, before and after the World Trade Center attack, there are various natures of organized crimes that have been uncharged and methods of them, readings of statutes, relative roles with it, judges and prosecutors, their kids, collusions with sexual and medical offenders of kids, elderly. They even have sick methods against their own elderly homes. All of a sudden, someone start hanging out with a woman from the other side of the elderly home. In other words, then they pop up a Terry Cleese into it. Those three spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. They changed where they put that name. Bayrock, a bunch of black, white, KKK themed identity theft, fraud, slanders, Latino theme, Italian theme, all kinds of federal evidences crimes with these Mendez police family too, and their educators involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, acting as collusion /S with people that forced my campuses to put fake things in databases by speaking with kids I never even saw around campuses, behind my back at campuses. Then they try Heather Hansen recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They put her locker right near me. Then they moved it to make a fake exception. I don't even know her. I saw her there. That was a fake exception they put. Increasingly, her educators have roles with sexual and medical offenders of kids. And with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, all kinds of falsified police reports. There are rules with people all through time along Walker Hill Road, on the corner of Walker Hill Road and Route 175. All along the corners are people involved with judges and prosecutors, involved with elderly homes and prisons, and with identity theft, fraud, slanders, uses of rights to lie where they don't have the right to lie. Since I was a kid, there were people I didn't even have conversations with my relatives involved all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders against me as collusion /S, right where and how they keep everyone fake, incapable of speaking for truth honestly or about lies honestly, but they want to pretend they have free speech anyway. Get me off the fake conversations with them about WFSB, about the World Trade Center attack. The sources of WTNH also planted fake ties to me, ones with the name O'Neill. They have the FBI and foreign and domestic military involved with whiting forensics through time. Also with Facebook, involved with the Joshua Julian with sexual and medical offenders of kids with New Britain Superior Court and their Facebook too. And forced the child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. And the same families have roles with that. And with this O'Neill family, it is plausible that There are military people tied to the person reportedly named O'Neill associated with the, because Weathersfield police have Saudis, they have collusions with them with the Mendez police. They had conversation with me, and their educators also recorded them, confessed them, demonstrated, confirmed them involved with, you know, organized crimes in the past. A whole bunch of kids tied to them. And like it has something to do with their roles all along Route 175 and houses at the corner, involved with identity theft, fraud, things, people that acted so others could film fake ties, fake natures or ties to me, and sequence shifts. Eric Jensen and Justin Kovinsky sought me out. I never saw it. They sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm their federal evidence crimes and organized crimes with intelligence communities near me. And there was some black KKK Confederate flag theme all along Route 175 through time. They've been planting evidences at the corners of the people with the corners of the streets, also as people tied to proven child abusers, leaders of kids. And their roles with Dearborn Street in Newington has something to do. And conversations with Jonathan Maiano, a bunch of people tied to with Jonathan Maiano, involved with shopping centers and Mortensons. I'm sorry, Mortensons. There are child abusers, leaders of kids tied to John Milano and his educators, like a former, and they're involved all kinds of dang stuff, fraud things. I didn't know who he was until my neighbors graduated. People with the name Kalal and Demorrow have collusions with the Milano family and with others next to Harvard Hospital, like Aiello's Kitchen there too. Involved with, I never had a class with Joe Aiello in my life or his sisters. They're involved with the next to Trinity College and with the fire departments, with some people named Kerr and Demorrow and Kalal with Weathersfield mayors. One's named Gold, and people with that planted evidence acted so people could put fake ties to me with them, and pretending a fake exception. People with the name Perone and Kerr said their roles with. There's also parts and they will demonstrate. I didn't even tell them things. But there were because other people recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed, involved them with organized crimes, and in some ways they involved other people with it. They had roles in Parks and Recs with some sexual and medical offenders of kids at Harvard Hospital, with the lawyers and their roles with foreign and domestic military investigators, people seating the types of sciences experts like translators, language translators, have a bunch of people with the courts and have worked with probate courts involved with organized crimes along to our highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane. I only know those people that have been planting evidence of collusions with the police departments intercities. There's a Chris White. I don't know him at all. He tried to make a fake exception with a Socia, Jim Socia and Jennifer Socia. I don't know what her name is. I never saw them on campuses. I don't know them. The only campus I saw them was walking by one time at Central Connecticut State University. People that I did have campuses with, they were in other classrooms putting fake things in databases with mayors, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, people tied to body dumping spots. Has something to do with these names and rules with police shootings and people that were timed into cities with untimely deaths and other murders by actual other killers. I mean, when I say actual, I don't mean to say that's fake because they probably did kill them. People with the name Chris White, people with the name O'Brien, involved planting evidences with other countries, fake motivations, identity theft, fraud, slanders, has something to do with the roles all along Route 3 with people with DACA. Brian Bonin sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has roles with Route 3 people with and with the intelligence community on Two Route Highway in conjunctions to it and to that. His neighbors involved with identity theft frauds. I never saw him on a campus in my life. He has roles with some sexual and medical offenders involved with kids and drugs and medicines crimes, putting fake things in databases. Weathersfield Pizza House has roles with them with the state judicial branch offices in conjunctions to it and to that, like Route 3. In conjunction to that, Hangdog and Two Route Highway are basically connected. Those people will tell you they were all influenced to plant fake ties, fake nature ties to me, and lie about their motivations and hide collusion / us that are recorded tied to it. Identity theft, fraud, slanders instances also no manifest that way. because these are styles of intercities, locations, areas, and states everywhere the human species body is. Because the suits and ties, counters, exceptions, the names of the people, the sciences have been voices, natures of integrity, leaving out who we have black people's rights of eyes as styles, incapable of defending that and reporting to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper. They don't know anything like emotions. They don't have debates about things like that, so they can bring things before courts that are recorded criminally foreign influence crime, incapable of making the right, revealing the right things in cases. The names of the people of science stand and stood abridged. We can discern how they have criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, readings of statutes and precedents originally and still, and why, how they force, trick, persuade others and other things, ourselves, to be blamed for nature's demonstrations of it. And our founders' demonstrations of it. Our founders communicated other than they said. They communicated that and how and why they did not have free speech. No one had it. And everyone had to pretend other to an extent, otherwise be sensed. People want to go have power. They want to use that name, power, or might, or peace, as collusion/s with each other. Tactically delusions raw, speaking about countries as if they're people too. We have our human species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. For that, generating all differences or generating demonstrations to us, we're using systems other than that one hyper-native pure. And I call it that because nature itself shows us it is value to appreciate and to address how sickly, distinctly Native Americans are forced to entertain roles with an abridged constitution, sickly, distinctly from ourselves. You don't hide and change what our founders communicated about the private criminal enterprises, about what really and why really, how really we have been involved with economies and A through Z, suits and ties, exceptions, pretend they can't fathom that that's an abridged system of value systems. And there's collusion/s with roles pretending other. But it's debatable. That's my free speech. No, they can't debate that legitimately. On a mass scale, they change and fake what people say about World Trade Center predicate acts. The FBI has roles putting a fake letter at Trinity College. They also have digital crimes and methods and acts with the FBI Director Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members, and a bunch of people tied to them, intercities and intrust cities, with mayors too, and their family members, collusions with them. Facebook has mayors too, and they're saying, oh, but look, I was talking about free speech. I was talking about how I speak free on Facebook, like one of the mayors and their family members. They're communicating other than when they know that is recorded. A whole bunch of people with Cromwell have ties to a Dillon family, and others with the retired police chiefs from Wethersfield, involved along Route 3 with the judicial branch, also with wire crimes with the Wethersfield Police Department. The branches of government individually grouped and together. They have predicate acts methods that are evidence/evidences. They are using their syntax regarding statutes of limitations. These are people since before the Clintons, but Clinton people also. With my sixth grade class, there's a Peruta family, increasingly involved with other Russians. I don't know their names. And shout out to Russia. It's nothing personal against Russia, but Russians and Americans had collusions with psychiatry, and with its and their roles with the interbranch and like corrections offices and judicial offices in America, and the equivalent in Russia. This is suits and ties, counters, exceptions with the suburbs having been designed by a torture, extortion, slavery method before America's founders were born. Next to Tucker Carlson's campus, Tucker Carlson caught up Vladimir Putin in a video you can watch on YouTube, in an interview, because at the campuses in Russia and at the campuses in America, they have replaced what our founders communicated to us, which is distinct from what they said, because modern countries were founded. Look at our founder, before America's founders were born, more than 13 colonies were entrenched with even slavery. And all the databases were criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw collusions, hyper additional, with the breaching methods uses of database's identity of relativity slash hyperrelativity to ourselves. Itself being the hyperrelativity that is why and how. Really, the North and the Southern colonies, and then the Northern states and the Southern states were left entrenched with roles with slavery. All truths about why are used for lies about it and to screen the breaching method simultaneously. What motivates that? They're all styles lying about what they think about themselves and others, who they like or who they don't like. Even their kids, their motivations for it with the news media. They on a mass scale, they prevent people while pretending other from having a voice by stealing our identities and sickly distinctly. A bunch of people with WTNH have the FBI next to them, involved with their intelligence and their sources next to campuses with people all along Route 175, further involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and collusion stacking databases, stacking data for people to pretend they're about data legitimately, while they were also tactically delusions raw. I'm not a doctor. I delineate their delusions from the criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects of nature, fake transcripts and ties to people. A bunch of people at Harvard Hospital and the Britain has medical campuses too involved with it. And UConn, a bunch of people with UConn, lawyers with the criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. In other words, we are just supposed to understand why and how James Madison's plan came before George Washington. And George Washington was using their plan, James Madison's plan, and the leverage of the founders behind him. George Washington, a retired general, and people tied to him didn't have the means to force that unity, people to break those laws and become a country. And everyone had to lie about their motivations because no one had free speech. We have this declassified. Nature shows us too. The nature debate, though, still contains quality aspects of nature, self-value, criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature as criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer, too. This is hyper evidentially recorded, too. Ugh. So, a bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News and Harper, Connecticut have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and more recorded leaders of kids first forced involved with organized crimes with them. And the same names have time collusions with youth / S of elderly homes as actually recorded value. And, we're going to pay attention to where and how, to Native Americans, how they didn't let us, better than free, help them with the human unity might. We're not through the bridge systems. You guys pretend it's debatable. Oh, because I'm not a lawyer. The lawyers are supposed to help us in ways tactically ulterior than they only allow us to have help. There are all kinds of collusions, fake motives, and motive screening. A Trantolo and others all along Route 3, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Other lawyers with the networks and the differences of guilt of the people running them or the people that before them. It's the difference of guilt also of the intelligence at their locations or next to them or the sources or people just traveling by the locations near them as people involved. With collusion with use / S of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases in the interbranch and intelligence putting the same self-value sequence shifts and then further self-value roles with that out of their location / S in those own and their own ones and ones are tied to them. So increasingly, Sandy Hook has people involved intercities, intrust cities with organized crimes of kids and people tied to Adam Lanza involved with it. And the Sandy Hook Promise has collusions with the judicial branch offices and the police forms involved also with sexual and medical offenders of kids and crimes with guns, other natures of organized crimes at the same time. They bring up the subjects and all kinds of predicate acts methods with everything that comes before them. The families and intimate ties of Harper courts and the Britain Superior Court, they had collusions before and after the World Trade Center attack with the Central Connecticut State University and with the intelligence next to them and the town lines and towns next to them and along the roads and route. Many tied to Route 175 with a Joseph Dennis and others with confessions tied to that. for something they're do the rolls with the corners of the streets with it. I don't know if that's. I know I never had a conversation. They put me in a fake conversation. I don't even talk to my family because of this. Like there's two. There's a mother and daughter reportedly in the news. Principals in Weathersfield with the name O'Connor. A former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has a Joe DeMorrow, a John DeMorrow, and a Paul DeMorrow. And people involved with abuse, some of the abused kids. They also had roles with federal crimes with evidences on streets near me, and roles with home break-ins years apart connected, untimely deaths roles years apart connected, murders intercities connected too. One of the untimely deaths at Trinity College with one of the ones on my street that forced tricked her and persuaded other ones about. They don't even know about that. Just because people on the same street, they're trying to put fake ties, fake nature ties between people. These are people that already have collusions with intelligence only capable of hiding what they're actually value as, where we are actually capable of discerning what is actually recorded. In other words, Quinnipiac University also has a bunch of judges and prosecutors involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, people from private campuses, planting evidences with overt criminal enterprises and private ones from other areas, as ones involved with the judges and prosecutors, like probate court judges too, with their extended family members and their intimate ties together and all kinds of scams, planting evidence, fake ties to me, fake nature ties to me, with the same house/S further involved. With the confessions of a Joshua Julian and of Whiting Forensics and of Facebook, as their collusions also in the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts and their families and intimate ties in the district court before and after the World Trade Center attack. They had collusions and having to cover that up. And Weathersfield police forced Saudis to collusions with them, with the Mendez brothers that faked conversation with me at the police station. They stole their rules from behind my back, stealing my identity as a kid too. And then you don't even know them or see them around, so you can't do anything about it. That's why how they're keeping the police departments criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw collusions, all kinds of natures, or federal crimes and organized crimes. And then they try to frame others. It was they already had been chased by a truck when they tried to frame me for doing what they were doing, throwing something at cars, rocks or fruit or what they were throwing at cars on Route 3. People tied to a Joe DeMorrow and a Tony DeMorrow have roles with in Rocky Hill, have roles with educators from Weathersfield with sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names next to body dumping spots, and their roles with the news, planting evidences, foreign and domestic military. There's some Marines from Newington too, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, police forms refusing to identify themselves legitimately. Don't fake ties to me, punk bag, fake. Get them on. And there's a bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, have collusions with names through time at spots where the Weathersfield police station is now and where it used to be. Has something to do increasingly too. People tied to a Jonathan Mayano involved with federal evidences, crime sequence shifts per them. And then demonstrate people further involved with with people on my street with falsified police reports with them, roll collusions with them, everyone forced to speak as groups. I never even saw him around my neighborhood. I just heard his name repeated to me through them, a John Mayano. Johnny used to shit like that. And when a Paul Zano would show up, like they would time where I was going to be, then make it look like I know Paul Zano. He also, too, one time he came to my house, asked me to go with him to Trinity College. So I went there. And we didn't even talk. And there was like some kids named Puzo. You know, they were saying that, and then we left. And we went to a place across the street from increasingly people on New Britain Avenue and Hartford, which there are two parallel with each other. One of the family intimate ties of Hartford courts, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with the Eric Burgess. The FBI and the courts have collusions with that intercities, intra-cities through time. Educators and some judges tied to Guy Dinavelis will tell you, in other words, I barely know him. Some judges and prosecutors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with the Sabi Bajario. Sabi Bajario has people, intelligence families near me, involved with more people, involved with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, with judges and prosecutors with them, and with medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic. And we're going to have to address the delusions of the people involved with the principles treatments with reason and with the principles of American history, because they have replaced what our founders communicated about what caused the American Revolution, about what caused the Constitutional Convention, about what caused the Declaration of Independence, about why and how they had to use truth for lies, about why and how the breaching method knew that people were going to break from its breaching method, had that in phases. Then the people who break from it will be everyone will be just taken totally decimated further, incapable of defending their fact-cheating nature counters, and of affording anything but as self collusion /s with the syntax and the science is breach. Therefore, location, areas, and states, nature's demonstrations of it. But it employed all the roles too, forcing, tricking, hurting, and persuading. Styles, those demonstrations to be blamed on other things, others, and or to be blamed on selves. And or roles, needs, nature, styles, sensing for the breaching method. A human fact human nature breaching method is a scientific value we're going to address that nature shows us, is one of the things. That all those crazy laws were about simultaneously, including with the witch trials were places about next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum, and what and why it's about, how they still have replaced what James Madison's plan was, and where and how and why. Everyone came together at the same time, really. And why and how they had to hide their actual motivations or be sensed. And they're all, we're going to be sensed anyway. But they had that way to survive by having everyone doing simultaneously. Inside of more than 13 colonies, James Madison counter-extorted key figure. Got George Washington to use this plan too. We're supposed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. It would have brought this up, would have allowed someone to bring it up, because nature demonstrates to us too. Again, nature demonstrates to us. One of the things, all those crazy laws against every human difference and helping them insidiously, one of the things they were all about at the same time was a human fact nature breaching method, a torture and extortion, and a fact nature, therefore physical slavery method. So we're going to address how the suburbs were designed to be a theater, but tactically denatured to have nature demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And the breaching method is a method that assigned roles, needs, and nature with uses of that demonstrated to them by nature itself. Instead, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to be blamed on other things, others, or ourselves, and or that body was incensed. In other words, this only allows people to have what they call pleasure, or success. How can you guys speak about success until we have the black people's rights of eyes and principles treatments that are not debatable put in place of the ones that are not even debatable? They're gotten away with pretending to be debatable relative to really what causes the problems with the campuses. There are all kinds of collusions. This breaching method knew that would have to keep adapting what it's doing the same, right, through all the generations since founding. And it keeps it, so with the boomers, man, everyone's speaking through other campuses. In other words, you guys don't realize they're putting everyone in faked and changed communications with each other. And we have to discern that. Because one of the ways they get away with it is want to have a debate about what was said dishonestly. Because if they address that honestly, It's going to bring up their rules with sequence shifts. It's recorded that and how they're having the people report what is reported to them by agencies, specifically have measured and maintained. They have the means to know, to discern to an extent. It's at least plausible that they wire crime acts and methods with people only allowed to counter types of crimes, who have been using every instance and name that comes before them to hide details, to hide the actual use of their value as criminal insidious in its nature. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. The best patriotism nature is that country A through Z. There's still criminal insidious in its nature. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Fact treatment nature, quality aspects of nature. And or that's why they're sensed, including if they're a majority of people, including if they're everybody of a unified country, as long as they're entertaining locations, areas, and states, then further, where the campuses and other private databases, identities of relativity / hyperrelativity to ourselves. It hides behind and through that. What nature keeps, the rules that nature keeps demonstrating, as rules with the breaching method that nature keeps demonstrating. And that replaced right from the communications of James Madison and of our founders, Black pupils. We must force all here to peer, attend. So please, anyone from Weathersfield, even if you don't know me, let's get them on paper because some fire departments and some police forms have the sense and sensibilities of everyone too scared. Also with the FBI and other police forms and foreign and domestic military, overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same time. No one has the ability to think about such or speak about such legitimately. So, and this is where you guys need courage. So get the Weathersfield police on paper, one name and sequence. They have federal crimes of people named Scalora too. They have confessions regarding this. And he pretended it was a statement. He pretended it was other than a confession. People named Scalora have identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. Intercities and intra-cities, when people with businesses and houses next to campuses involved with collusions with them with sexual and medical offenders of kids. Robert Rodriguez has roles with them with untimely deaths, even if they're made up. FBI Director Robert Luskin and a bunch of people tied to people named Scalora with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with people on off the state judicial branch offices and the corrections offices in conjunctions to it and to that. Black people. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Watch how their ties to the mayors actually are.